Please welcome from the indie drama Bound actress Pooya Mohseni. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. This movie I thought it was just an emotional roller coaster. You play the mother of the lead character. Her name is Yeva. And in this new indie drama, she is extremely emotional throughout the film. It's a film that's directed by Isaac Horatsu. I think I said that correctly. It's about survival. It's about forgiveness. It's about found family, and it's set on this backdrop of this gritty New York City, this dog eat dog world. How did the project come to you?
Well, the audition was happening, we were still in the pandemic. So
Oh,
this was late summer, early fall 2021.
mm,
Um, and I had seen the casting before, but I was like, no, I don't think I'm right for this. But then fast forward, about a month or so, and I saw it again, and I'm like, what the hell? I'll submit, and it was during that time that we're like, is anybody actually looking at our submissions? Is anybody looking at our self tapes? So I did the self submission, and um, then I got a request for a callback. And the callback was, basically like this scene that didn't have a whole lot of dialogue in it. And it was a very emotional scene between the
yeah.
mother and daughter.
Mm,
And the directions were like, this is the storyline and improv, and we want something between 30 seconds and a minute. And Isaac tells the story much better than I can. That apparently mine was like about a minute, minute and a half. That it was just me, just really just living in that scene. And it was very emotional. And he said, when I got that, I cried. And then I got this email from casting, and they said that the writer director, Isaac Mirasa Wufter, he would like to have a director session with you or something like that. And so I got on a call with Isaac and Alexandra. I think Alexandra was also on the call. And we started talking about it. And that's when they told me that they wanted to offer me the role. So that's how it came to be. And, I obviously, this is a kind of film that reading it in script format versus seeing the final product is like, oh my God, like I could have never seen everything that this movie became, which is a credit to Isaac's, not just his writing, but his directorial skill. Um, and I kind of like I got on the bus. I was scheduled to go and stay at this hotel somewhere in central Jersey for about a week. And my first shot on that first day was my last scene in the movie.
oh, wow.
So, kind of like I'm like, I had no opportunity to ease into it. So it's like,
Right.
that last scene,
Yeah.
everything that happens in that coffee shop. I don't want to tell the audiences. I don't want to,
No
I don't
spoilers.
want to ruin that for them. But like that was my first scene. And we started shooting it, I think, around 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I think we ended around 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mm, long shoot.
And I mean, it was intense. And then we didn't get all the scenes that I was in. We weren't able to get all of them during that week that I was there. So then they have me come back a few weeks later, and some of the outside scenes. I mean, you saw my costume. It was basically a
Yes.
nightgown,
A nightgown.
and when we were outside, it was like mid-December.
Did you film in New
and I
York or
actually
South
got
Jersey?
sick
Oh,
in New Jersey,
in New Jersey.
and I actually got sick. I actually got sick later in the week because it was so cold shooting that scene. But looking back on it, what Isaac did to this film and how he was able to put it all together in a way that it's like it's completely unhinged, and yet everything fits perfectly into their place in the storyline and the performances and how the story kind of like rolls forward. It's like everybody, everybody collectively has said it's intense, it's kind of unhinged, but it's a very clear storyline. And for my character, it was it was hard. I mean, all the characters were hard for the people who wanted to play them, but for my character, especially because I was playing it, obviously, I was like, how do I make this character interesting? Because on the page, she doesn't have a whole lot to do.
Right,
It's
because she's struggling in a way that there's not a lot of maybe dialogue explaining what's going on with her. It's all
Yeah.
physical. Did she change and evolve from when you first got the specs, you first got the script, to when you got to set? Had she been flushed out a little more and described to you a little more about what Isaac wanted?
Isaac, I mean, it was more like I had questions for Isaac because
Mm-hmm.
I needed to know, okay, I see this is what happens in this moment, but I need to know, is it happening because of this, or is it happening because of this, or is it happening because of that? Uh, like the questions about her current husband, her ex-husband, what was that relationship like? What was that relationship like when the ex-husband was alive? And all of those things. So I could kind of like have an internal map of how did this woman come to be where she is now. And Isaac guided me when I needed guidance, and he let me do what I thought was right when I wasn't seeking it. And I think that was really the joy and beauty of getting directed by Isaac, was that he would give you enough of what you asked for, and he would let you go when he felt that you needed to kind of like, find your own rhythm and your groove and your own internal reasoning for whatever you were doing.
And that's probably a little helpful because he's an actor himself. He understands the actor process and how to take the
Exactly.
words in and create from it. He knows that you need to sit with it a little bit, maybe.
Exactly. And that experience was just, I mean, it was intense to say the least. But I love the man. Whenever I talk to him on the phone, I have nothing. I mean, I always tell him, I'm like, I didn't know how you were gonna pull this all together, Isaac. But the the truth of it is in the film, and it's a beautiful film, and we're all very proud of it. And I'm very grateful that I did decide to submit for it, because I think my character is not a character I'm usually asked to play. I'm
Mm.
usually asked to play these very pristine and, perfectly composed and very strong characters. And Yeva is none of those things.
None of those things. And she has these emotional, challenging, physical moments in the film that you had to go through. What sort of guidance did Isaac give you for those more physical moments where there's less dialogue, but more story told with your body, with your face?
I would ask questions. I'm like, why is she going through this right?
Right.
And he would tell me, it's like, well, this happened and that happened. And then if I didn't feel that it was clear, I'm like, well, what if it's this? And then it connects to that other thing. And then we would do it. And then if he didn't like it, obviously he would tell me. And it was something as simple as, like, how would I look up? You've seen the scenes where I'm working on my flowers.
Yeah.
Like, what do those flowers mean to me? And it was all of these little things And that's how I got to, it's almost like it's almost like a sonar that you're figuring out where something is by all the things surrounding. How
Yeah,
does
and
she talk to
the
her
other
daughter?
performances, yeah, the other performances, Alexandra Faye, say it again. I always say her name wrong. Say it again. Is how you say her last name?
I
Who plays
think
Bella, your
it's
daughter?
yeah, Alexandra, that's my girl you're talking about. Um
Yes, she
I
the
she's
relationship
incredible.
between mother and daughter, which at times was fleeting because she was in New York. There was two stories going on, but the moments together were just amazing. And then the moments that you spent on screen with Brian Carroll, who played your, we'll say, abusive husband, and then also other character actors like Jessica Pimentel, who fans know from Orange is the New Black. What was it like working with this such diverse cast and also, trying to find your character within this film around these incredible actors?
It's one of those moments, like I said, my first scene that I shot was my last scene in the movie. And from there, I was like, okay, this is going to be a wild ride. This is going to be a wild ride. And Brian, he's just, oh my God. Like to be able to do those scenes and
Yeah,
some of those scenes together, you have to have such trust and such love for each other and respect for the work. Like that I think it all comes down to there had to be trust on all fronts, between the actors and director, crew members, safety, because there are also firearms
of course.
on set. There's a lot of physical violence that happens in the movie. And now just talking about it, I'm just thinking like, just working with Brian or working with Alexandra in those, because it's also the juxtaposition of my scenes with Brian are heartbreaking in
Yes.
a particular way. Like he's abusive, but you can also see his love for my character.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can see it. You can see when he hurts me, it's killing.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side, then there are the scenes with me and Bella, and they're heartbreaking in a completely different way, in a, kind of like a mother who feels helpless,
Yes.
that she can't protect her daughter. And I feel all of these things are like this inner cancer that are just eating at her soul. And you can see through the movie, she just deteriorates
Yeah.
from scene to scene to scene. And that, I think, for me personally, that was the greatest challenge. I wanted that because it's more than just hair and makeup. I'm like, sure, like, okay, I'm not going to color my hair, or I'm not going to exfoliate, or I'm not going to like do those external things. And yeah, that's all great. But for me to be like, okay, I'm weaker in this scene than I was in that scene, even if I'm literally shooting it like the day after.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you say that because in the scenes when you played opposite Brian, you were weaker. You were a little bit of a victim. But when you played the mother role, when you were with Alexandra, there was more strength behind that. So there was definitely a juxtaposition between those two relationships for this character who might not have had a lot of dialogue, but still had a lot of importance in this story and sort of influence on both sides of those characters. Did you get a chance? That this is an interesting question because you were working with these incredible actors, but those actors, especially Alexandra, was working with these amazing flying squirrels. Did you have any time on set with them to play with them, get to know them?
I mean, like that little creature is like, it's also I learned a lot about it, that it's like they get kind of like, social exhaustion, and when they sleep and when they're awake, and temperature and all of those things. I didn't get to interact because also, the days were long.
Right.
I do remember there's an animal that's actually not in the film, but that animal existed on set. And it was this big, humongous dog who we all just doted on. And I think that animal was like our support animal. Whenever we were between takes, it's like humongous animal. But it was just, I think, also, that little animal in the film, there's like, it brings a certain sweetness to our
Yes.
story, because otherwise it's a very bleak story. It can be a very bleak story, but it's like these moments of love and kindness and tenderness that you see either between characters or between Bella and her little flying squirrel. It's like they just touch you in a very deep way. And I feel like I'm trying to think what the animal's name was. Good Lord, I'm drawing a total blank right now.
It's been a few years since the movies, since you worked on the movie, so
Yeah, and I've seen the film like twice, and it's just those moments of kindness, and I think that's why it's a heartbreaking movie. Because if it's just violence, you kind of get numb.
yeah.
If it's just tenderness, then it's not going to be our movie. But I think it's kind of like this puzzle of violence, aggression, kindness, humanity, violence, aggression, and it kind of like they're always kind of like, blending in and out, which makes it very human.
Yeah.
It makes it very touching. In some moments, it makes it heart-wrenching. In some moment, it makes it almost like painfully tender, like some of the scenes between my character and Bella. And in that way, I think it doesn't really fit into a mold of saying like it's this kind of movie.
Right. Right. It's definitely a
Right.
drama. It's definitely a drama. It's a gritty
Yeah.
drama. I feel like oftentimes when films are, they have a background of New York City can kind of be an overwhelming character. And in this way, it works because she is overwhelmed in this new city. She is trying to
Yeah.
find her footing. Is there a performance or maybe a scene that you worked on that maybe ran the gamut of emotional, for your acting, and you're specifically proud of that you hope maybe resonates with viewers when they watch it?
Two scenes I can think of. Um, and one of them is by myself, and one of them is both with Brian and Alexandra. I'm not going to tell the audience exactly what the scene, but there's a scene where I kind of see that Alexandra is approaching Brian's
Yeah,
character, and I start screaming. And different people have different interpretations of that. And I feel like in that moment, it's like my character is overwhelmed because she obviously loves her daughter and wants her to be safe. And she's worried about her. And she's also worried about Gordy. And she's like, what can I do right now? And the thing that comes to mind, I'm just gonna throw everybody off what they're doing. And I'm just gonna, it's almost like when you're so overwhelmed, you don't have words, you don't know what to do. And the only thing you can do is just to scream. And I feel like that scene, they had to really decide for me, like, why am I screaming? who am I protecting?
Mm.
And the more I thought of it, I'm like, I'm just trying to protect my family as best as I can.
Yeah, that's exactly how it read to me. And in that scene in particular, it felt extremely trauma driven, extremely uh I can't say physical because it's not like you were using some like physicality where you were running around, but it still was physical. The emotion was so painful on your face throughout that entire scene, throughout the movie, but that scene in particular. How do you decompress from a day of work where you're just crying and in agony all day? Do you have a technique that you go through where you just sort of leave it on set?
I think sometimes, like your whole soul just comes out. And, like, I mean, that scene, we shot it many times from many different angles. So, yes, it is physical, not in the fact that I'm running around, but, like I'm basically being handled by two people and
Yes.
I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. And the best way I can say is, first of all, when you give it all, then afterwards, like there's not a whole lot left.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also when you're in that company, you're not doing it in a vacuum,
Mm-hmm.
and you have that love and care and that sense of community. I'm pretty sure at the end of that day, I felt both physically and vocally and emotionally spent, but I don't regret any of it. Do I have a technique? I don't think so. Maybe going somewhere warm and cozy and just hibernate and watch a cooking show or something.
Well, you're right in saying that once you get that out, it's kind of like, whew, it's a little bit of a relief. It's on film now. That scene is over. You've expressed those emotions. You've got it out of you. So maybe that is a little bit of a lasting deep breath after after a long day at work.
Yeah.
What kind of emotions do you hope that sit with fans after they watch this? Is there something that you hope sticks with them after this watch?
I think on one hand, people can go home and say, well, I thought my family was screwed up. Now, not so bad. Um, I think when you leave, ultimately, by the end of the movie, I've seen it twice in the theaters, and I think you leave just feeling sad for the characters who have unfortunate endings, shall we say? Uh, and kind of like joy for the characters who make it through.
The growth. I
You
think
know,
it's nice to see the growth from where they started, and even though the ending, the film itself has a lot of tragedy in it, the growth is what it's inspiring in the characters, I think.
like it's a heroine's journey.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and like kind of like where Bella starts and where she ends,
yeah.
and that journey, the people she leaves behind, the things she encounters, the things she learns about herself. And I think ultimately she finds herself through that. And I think, it's like people say it's a gritty drama. Like it's a drama. It just happens to have gritty moments like life does.
Mhm.
And I feel that the way that each character plays an important part, the movie wouldn't be complete without a single one of them.
Sure,
Like it's
sure.
a puzzle. Uh, you know, one character is all aggression. One character is all uh, sadness and depletion, somebody's frustration, somebody's regret, somebody's just survival. And it's like and I think it's through encountering all of these people that Bella finds herself. So, what do I want people to leave with is don't taking anything in life, not taking anything for granted, because everything that comes our way can help us be a better version of ourselves.
Sure, absolutely. And I think for me, when I was watching it, I thought kindness comes to people in such interesting ways. There was many moments in Alexandra's life when she was in New York where kindness found her. It seeked her out. It saw her when she didn't think anyone saw her. And I thought that was really powerful. And it spoke a little bit about the city of New York and how people in the city are very much together. It feels like the city is all consuming, but the people who live in it are sort of in it together. It's like they're in it together to be a, to fight this big overwhelming city. And there was those moments in this movie that made it feel truly a New York project. The film, like I said earlier, has been receiving a lot of attention. What was your reaction when you saw the reaction from viewers and you started hearing that it was winning things?
I think the first time I saw it, because I had shot my scenes and then seeing it all put together, I was I was speechless. And then when I came out, and my friend that was there with me, he's like, "You told me you just had a couple of scenes." I did. He's like, "You didn't have a couple of scenes. You were like one of the main characters." And I feel again that's the beauty of how the story weaves in and out of people. And it's kind of like when they all come together, then you get the fabric. And the fabric is really New York, because think about New York. Different people come from different backgrounds, everybody looking for something, for a better life, for a community, for a chosen family. And it's so appropriate that New York is the backdrop, because I think this is a New York story in the way that this is what it's like to be a New Yorker.
Yeah.
Yes, it seems daunting and overwhelming, but there are so many layers. And I feel the first layer is the huge skyscrapers and the monolith that is Manhattan. And then as you kind of slowly sink into it, you realize there are communities on all of these layers, whether it's immigrant community or queer community, or where they kind of like intersect. And as a queer immigrant who's been in New York for almost 30 years, I look at it and I'm like, I understand this story. It's the
Sure.
story of what does it take for an outsider to find a new home? What does it take for someone to feel like an outsider? And then how do you weave your way through that? And I think the beauty of New York is, whatever people say about New York itself is a living entity.
It is.
It has it has a soul. It has a heartbeat. And we feel these people that you see in Bound, they're just the manifestations of the different layers. So in a way, I think it's a love letter to New York. I think it's an ode to humanity and the different ways it manifests itself, or places where you wish it was and you crave it and it doesn't show itself. And it seems very relevant to the world we're living in right now.
It does, absolutely, it does. We have to talk also. I mean, I could talk about this movie forever because I really enjoyed it. But we also have to talk about also going to be starring in an episode or a couple episodes of The Walking Dead: Dead City, the spinoff from the big show, The Walking Dead, the one that deals with Maggie and Negan. Can you tease us any little tidbits about your role as Roxana? Do not spoil anything, but little teases
I'm
maybe.
not going to. I'm only going to talk about the first episode that's already out. I'm in 3 episodes to start with. And, I mean, the people who are familiar with the Walking Dead world is kind of like, is this dystopic future world where kind of like the zombies have taken over and people are trying to survive. Again, not so different from the world we're living in right now.
And another project
My
based in New
character,
York.
you know, somebody would think I'm a New York actor.
They might.
I think there are similarities between Yeva in Bound and Roxana in Dead City. And it's this quality that somehow I seem to possess. And I can't even tell you why or how this has come to be. But I have this maternal, matriarchal quality. Roxana is obviously a stronger character than Yeva, but she also kind of like has her clan, her children that
Yeah.
she would fight for fiercely. And the character is supposed to be, uh, kind of like this mother hen of this group of foragers. I really loved it because she's she's very New York. She's very New York in the fact that she doesn't take any crap. She will tell you where it's at if you get out of line.
Yes.
But there's also this genuine care that she has for the people around her. And I mean, I'm not going to tell you what her whole arc is. That is for the audience to find
Of
out.
course.
Uh, but what I loved about her was her strength, her heart. She had a lot of heart, and her fierceness comes out of her love for her clan, for her babies, for her kids. And I seem to love those kind of characters. My mom and I moved to the States almost 30 years ago. I think my mom was a very fierce woman. She's still probably one of the sassiest people I know. And I think growing up in a very patriarchal society, I
Sure.
appreciate the strength of women and how they had to maneuver their path to survive and thrive and accomplish in a world that kind of like wanted to always push them to second class citizenship. So Yeva and Roxana, um, I would say the one thing they absolutely have in common is their heart.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeva feels like somewhere along the line, something broke her. Like Yeva is broken. Whereas Roxana has seen her in her life and she gets her strength from that. The fact that bad things are happening and there needs to be a strong person to take care of business and take care of my kids. And that's the path she's taken. And I always say trauma is like a meteor, that it hits you and you can either go in one direction or another. You can either break and become bitter and kind of like want to crawl in your shell because you don't have the strength to fight anymore, or you kind of like take that as your clarion call and you like, this world needs a warrior and I'm going to be the warrior.
I kind of wish Roxana had met Eva because it does feel like these are two mothers, both equally had power at one time. One chose to take power and take control. The other gave her power up in a lot of ways. And so they are kind of similar characters in that they have an abundance of caring, but you're right. The meteor hit them and they went their own different ways. One of the things I always ask about to people that work on The Walking Dead when I interview them, whether they're a longtime cast member or they've just joined the cast, what was it like filming? Because everyone has the same story that the set life is like a family. And that has started from the beginning, from the very first season of The Walking Dead, down through the series and through the spin offs. That feeling of family has never left this show. Did you feel that when you joined it?
Absolutely. It was also like being a recurring guest star. It was like I got to see a lot and be included in many of the conversations because the writers were on set, obviously the director, the executive producer, and the main characters. It's like Lauren, who I'm a huge fan of, and obviously it's like all Walking Dead fans are just, they're just in love with her. And what an incredible person to actually get to work with. And that feeling of family really permeates down, up, sideways, forward, backward, so much so that I even felt comfortable that the scenes that I was in, like most of the people playing my clan, if you may, the foragers, they were mostly background actors. And in most instances, principal actors don't necessarily socialize and associate with
Right.
background actors. But that was not the case. And it was also helpful because I got to have conversations with them. For me, it was partially from a character point of view that I'm thinking, well, if these people are supposed to be my family, then we need to come across as people who've known each other for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So every time they said cut, I would start talking to them and joking with them and all of that to kind of like, have that feeling that we didn't just meet today, that we've known each other for like 10 years or whatever. And that is a very special feeling. But it's also a feeling that, it's not just you doing it. The director is also doing it. The writer is also doing it. And then you totally feel that you're all in the same boat. You're all rowing in the same direction. It's just that different times, different people are rowing.
Sure. I really loved that this season specifically spent more time in New York. And I absolutely loved where your clan was living. And I found that to be fascinating. It's something that I wondered in the first season if they were going to include. So, fans, when you're watching, or if you haven't caught up yet, catch up with the first couple episodes and continue to watch Pooya because I'll tell you, I love anything that's based in New York because I'm a New Yorker, and I really love the idea of an apocalypse in New York. I love that idea. I love that idea. What's next for you? You got any upcoming projects that you're working on that we can keep an eye out for?
Right now, it's like, I lead an actor's life. So, I just came from a workshop development of a new play. But one thing that I'm putting it out there, and it's my short film with my partner called Always Azizam. We're in post-production and we're trying to find uh, a person to join our team to help us kind of like help the movie meet the world. Someone who understands the movie, understands how to pitch it to festivals. And just to give you like a little blurb about it, I thought we have queer stories. We very rarely have queer stories about people of color.
Mm.
Even less than that, queer stories about immigrants,
Mm-hmm.
most specifically in an Iranian American society,
Correct.
especially if it's not traumatic. Like
Mm.
it has moments of drama and
Sure.
people are trying to figure their path, but it doesn't end in tragedy. It's actually an uplifting story. That's why I came up with the story. That's why my partner and I collaborated to write it and produce it and direct it and all of that, and we're pitching it. So I am very proud of that. And hopefully we can find somebody. So if anybody out there is watching this that wants to join our team to help us basically birth our movie into the world, that, and it's one of those moments that you ask yourself, like, why do I love what I do? It's because I believe that stories matter. I believe stories about representation, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's survival, whether it's representation of a particular kind of trans character, or representation of anything. When we see something, either in film or on stage, it allows us to connect to something, either something internal and feel like, oh, I connect with that character, or allow you to see an experience that's different from your own. And I feel that is what storytelling does. It allows us to expand our horizon, our imagination, our understanding of the world around us, and hopefully make us or help us be more open to life, to people who are different from us. And the word you used earlier about bound, hopefully help us be kinder human beings.
Absolutely. I think right now we could use more uplifting queer stories. We're done with all of those sad and tragic, sad lives. We want uplifting. We want happy. We want a smile. We have wonderful community, a bright community, and we need that. I think that bright side right now. So I hope that you do find someone that will help you release this. I hope it meets the right person to put it in festivals. And I hope you get a lot of attention for Bound. And it leads to that because I think that Bound is a superior film. And I think that queer dramas like the one you're speaking of, this society right now, today, we need more of that. We need more kindness.
Your mouth to the ears of whoever's listening.